Sound production, take one.
For me?
It's a gift from Bo.
Oh, wow. This is really great. This is really special. But I already filed the paperwork, so I need you to get out of the building in the next 20 minutes because you're not going to be working here anymore.
Sound production, take two.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Cinema Dream. I am Kip,
And I'm Mad Cat, Melody.
and today we are going to be discussing The Wolf of Snow Hollow. So this is Mad Cat's choice. Mad Cat, why'd you pick it?
The quickest way to answer that question is to say that you wanted me to come up with something very quickly, and I have a list of movies, and it was the next one. It's the one I happened to be looking at when you asked me, but I'm very glad I picked it because when I was watching the trailers for it, it seemed very offbeat. Like I couldn't pick up exactly the tone that you're supposed to be getting while you're watching the movie, and not knowing was very interesting to me. So there you go.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I guess I'll give a quick description. The Wolf of Snow Hollow is a 2020 horror comedy film directed by Jim Cummings. You know, I'm just going to pause that description and say the last film we did was Blood Vessel. Do you remember the director of that?
No.
The director of that was Justin Dix.
Oh,
The director of The Wolf of Snow Hollow is Jim Cummings. I'm seeing a pattern here. I feel like the director of the next film we review is going to be like Rebecca Thruster, you know? Like, what's going on? Anyways. The Wolf of Snow Hollow is a 2020 horror comedy film directed by Jim Cummings. It follows a small town sheriff dealing with a series of brutal murders that coincide with the full moon. As he investigates, he battles personal demons and rising fear in the community. I had to stop myself from saying, have you ever seen Black Dynamite?
Yeah.
So you know the scene where he's like talking about how he has to stop all the drug dealers in the community. And then his friend's like, but Black Dynamite, I sell drugs in the community. So every time I say community, I always want to say that line. Anyways, that's the brief description for The Wolf of Snow Hollow. The film stars Jim Cummings, who again is the director and lead actor, as John Marshall, Ricky Lindholm as Detective Julia Robson, who is from, was it Garfunkel and Oates, right?
Mm-hmm.
One half of the duo. Robert Forster as Sheriff Hadley. This is actually Robert Forster's last film. Rest in peace to him. It also has Chloe East as Jenna Marshall. She plays daughter of Jim Cummings' character. Will Madden as Paul Carnery, and Annie Hamilton as Brienne Paulson. Brienne is not in the film very long, but I wanted to at least name 6 cast members. So, what would you give it on the enjoyment scale?
I gave it a somewhat enjoyable.
Oh man, is this the first time we agree? Because that was mine too. I'll go first. No, I think this is a fun movie that suffers from tonal issues, which is weird because it's a horror comedy, so it's already going to have like very separate tones in nature. Scenarios that would benefit from dramatic acting rely on humor instead to alleviate any tension within the scene. Sometimes this works, and when it does, it shines as a dark comedy, but when it doesn't, it sort of just pulls the trigger too early. It feels like the film's insistence on mitigating dramatic pressure with jocularity feels too quick to the draw, like it went from point A to C while skipping B. I think certain moments felt like a natural lead up to A, the issue, B, the dramatic moment, and C, the levity. But I found myself thinking at multiple points, please stop skipping B. And at other points, wondering, why are we getting B right now when we just had C? So it just seems like tones are coming in incorrect orders. Again, this is not in every moment in the film, but enough to kind of like agitate me, if you will. Some other aspects about the film that could have been a bit better. The acting sometimes is a bit off, mainly like facial expressions. For example, a character showing disdain and hate, but instead their face is more sinister than hurt to the point where it made me think that they could possibly be a villain. I'll be honest with you, there was a point where I thought the main character, he was going to be the wolf. This solely was based off his facial expressions in certain scenes and the sharpness of his teeth. He had some really sharp teeth. I was like, oh, they're setting it up. It's going to be like, oh, I'm the wolf. And me drinking, getting blacked out drunk is me going on these murder sprees. Again, my main reasoning was his teeth. And the facial expressions that he had in certain scenes didn't line up with what would have been a normal person's facial expressions. I just think it was an acting issue. The film, as I said, is somewhat enjoyable. It's a fun movie. There are plenty of good moments in it. Just the overall fact that it's a werewolf movie is entertaining. I feel like we don't get a lot of those. I think that when the comedy lands, it's very very funny. It's like I said, it's a dry, dark humor, but when it works, it works. I think that Ricky Lindholm gives a great performance as like third in charge because his father's first in charge, then him. But by the end, surprise, it's her. I think she gives a great performance throughout. I think that the kills, while not really shown, this just clicked in my head that they don't show really any kills. While not shown, they're still exciting. I don't know how they managed to be, but they are. Well, there's one when the girl's getting attacked. When the kills are occurring, I feel like the acting's really good for the people that are supposed to be experiencing fear and suffering. I guess my biggest issue, and this could be a me thing, this isn't my biggest issue. The biggest issue was definitely the tonal issues. I didn't understand the wolf being the guy at the end. When they popped up and, she got the clue because she saw the seamstress needle and he saw the guy's height. The whole time I was like, wait, who the hell is this character? Like, I don't know if I just passed out, but I really don't remember seeing him before. And then it was pretty anticlimactic, like the mini chase and then the little shootout in the woods. It didn't do it for me. That was kind of like a low point for me as well. I do think the moments that dealt with his struggling fatherhood and his struggling to deal with his anger issues and address trauma that he had, I think that the interactions that he had with his wife, while brief, were very funny. That's where he shined the most, dealing with the stresses of trauma and alcoholism. But that's it. That's how I feel about it.
Speaking of A, B, and C being out of order, I really wanted, because I love dark comedies, I wanted to give this a full enjoyable. But I have a theory that Will Ferrell might have ruined that for me. Otherwise, I would have given this a full, right? Because I liked it from the very beginning. There's a scene in the beginning when this couple, they're out in a cabin in the woods. It's creepy, but they think they're going to have sexy times. And the guy, he's looking for something to open the wine bottle. And then you notice, there's no knives, which is kind of to him oh man, this is inconvenient. But to me, the viewer, I was like, oh, this is cool, creepy. And from that moment, I was like, I'm in it. I'm in this movie. I'm on board with whatever you want to show me. From that point on, I started to realize it didn't really seem like a horror. And I couldn't tell, by the end of the movie, I realized that's on purpose. But towards, around the movie, I was kind of misled. And I think it misleads you purposefully. I don't think the teeth thing was purposeful. I think that's just that guy's teeth. But I did notice that too.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just saying.
But there are a lot of things where I felt like they purposely wanted to set this up as a werewolf movie, in the first half of the movie anyway. And the stereotypical werewolf movie will have it be, you don't know who the werewolf is because the werewolf could be anybody until the last moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like a classic werewolf tale. So I was like, yeah, it could be him. It could be this other guy. It could be anybody you meet. But then halfway through, they have this guy who you think, it's portrayed like this is the werewolf. And so I was like, oh, I get what this is. This is not, a werewolf story. This is just a detective story, like a CSI type murder mystery, detective drama where you're just, somebody's killing somebody and they just got to find the guy and it's just got a twist on it that there's a werewolf in the city. So I was like, okay, well, that's kind of cool. I can get into detective porn. This is the first time I ever actually, was introduced to the term detective porn. People were talking about this movie, but I get it. If you look at Seven's not really a horror movie, but it's kind of creepy. Creepier than this movie, I'd say. But then, towards the end, when I was like, oh, this isn't really the movie I thought it was going to be, it became something maybe more interesting to me, and I chose it because I didn't know what to expect. I partially thought, maybe this isn't going to be a horror movie, and maybe you'll be mad at me for that. But I am kind of happy that what I got out of it wasn't a horror movie. I was kind of right that I was going to be surprised, because it's kind of about, to me, toxic masculinity and maybe cops in our society, and how the two, collide and kind of attract each other, and what that looks like. Because even his father was portraying what I would think would look like to the normal people as normal behavior, but at the same time is not. It's unhealthy behavior. Just won't let go to the, good old days when they would just kind of be wild, wild west cops and catch the bad guy in the street, shoot the bad guys, didn't want to deal with these real dramatic life things. He wanted to be the gunslinger. And it kind of, they have this saying about how people will some men, they want to go out and kill the bad guys for you and put their lives on the line, take a bullet for you, but they don't want to do the dishes. And so more and more, there's all these quotes about women and why the victims all tend to be women. So I was loving it, this philosophy. It made me think about the werewolf mythos at large and what it could mean, bigger and bigger. And so that's where it just plumed. And I was done. I'm all for this movie. I love it. It's great. Full steam ahead, except for the main character's portrayal and how he would just blow up sometimes, and you're A, B, and C. And when you talk about C, I think what you're talking about how he would get crazy, which would be awesome if you got the middle in between that would justify his going to 11. And I wanted to be there with him because he was hilarious and kind of lovable, but also dastardly and like, he's an alcoholic. So there's no real good ending. We still have to live in this world where his daughter hates him just a little bit and he has to worry about her, but he can't trust himself. But I didn't know if it was good acting because it looked like Will Ferrell. And Will Ferrell, I don't like as an actor because they hire him to get into a movie to just yell way too quickly, way too loudly.
I will not tolerate this blasphemy against Will Ferrell.
But I think if I had never seen a Will Ferrell movie, I wouldn't be so curious about like, is that good acting or is it not? Because I would see something other than Will Ferrell. So if I had never seen a Will Ferrell movie, this would be entirely enjoyable.
I don't know what the you mean by that, but okay.
Because Will
That's
Ferrell.
It. Okay. That's it.
Well, I just think he gets like I've seen him in his most recent movies, and he gets hired just to do that, to come in, go on a tirade, and
Yeah. He doesn't have to try anymore.
Yeah, and I wanted to watch this movie and see this guy, and I wanted to be like, how hard is he trying? What is he trying to do?
Yeah.
But all I could see was Will Ferrell, and it didn't seem like he was, Will Ferrell doesn't seem like he has to try.
I think he just needs to have a co-director.
I think he just needs to have an actor so that he doesn't have to play the main role.
I think his comedic elements are great. I just think they're out of place. Even a few dramatic moments where he's not bad. It's just the placing of these moments. That's why I say he needs a co-director.
See, and I think the placing of the scenes, I liked how it was a little offbeat. It's a little out of order. There's a beautiful scene that I can't believe I didn't write a note about it, where it comes after like the funniest line in the movie, the lawyer's line. You remember this?
Nope.
They're right about to go out thinking they're going to catch this guy. And all the cops are together. It looks like they're about to pray. And he says, I'm not going to ask you to pray with me because of the goddamn lawyers. You don't remember that?
No.
And you can see the other characters, the women and the female sheriffs. Both of them look like they're trying so hard not to crack up because it's such a funny line. The way he delivers it. When I saw Robert Forster in the movie, I was like, oh man, they got this guy in this movie. That made me feel so proud that I picked out a movie that he also said yes to. And then at the end of the movie, when they have that scene, the goddamn lawyers scene, I was like, this is why he's such a legend. But they have this cut where he says it. It's so funny that the characters, and you can see the one lady, the Garfunkel sheriff, she's cracking up. But I'm thinking like, even in the canon of the film, even in the story, this character who's about to go kill like a serial killer could still find this line this funny that it makes sense to me that she's cracking up in the scene. And then there's a small cut because he's been having this problems with his heart and he doesn't want everybody to be freaking out over it. But it's a small cut to his son's face looking at him. And then a quick cut back to the whole scene we had before. And he's like, all right, let's go get him. And everybody goes out with their guns. And just his son and him are there. And until everybody clears out, even though there's no obstruction in front of them, until everybody clears out, I didn't notice that he's holding him. Like his son is holding him up. And I was like, that's so brilliant how they snuck that in there, but it's right in front of me the whole time. But I wasn't looking at it because, they have this going on. They have the other sheriffs, all this stuff. I was like, that's one of my favorite, like, just cuts.
They undercut that moment. That's one of the moments where after it, he goes to the cop that also serves as receptionist. And he's like, I need you to drive my dad to the hospital.
See, that was enough.
Hold on. And she's like, okay. And you can see him breaking down, but trying to hold it together. He's like, I can't do it. But please, can you just do this for me? Please don't tell anybody. And she's like, okay, sweetie, it's fine. And then he makes a weird directing choice by like whipping out his shotgun, doing the slow-mo speed ramping, running towards the door in slow-mo like an Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone film with an explosion in the background. I'm like, why'd you do this? That was not a moment to do slow-mo. So that's kind of one of the things that I mean. But that moment for that was fine. Before we wrap it up, the killer, did he have a lot of on-screen presence prior to the big reveal?
So maybe I'm just super lazy. I did find scenes where he was in, and you can kind of see, like, maybe out of the corner of his mouth, he's a little smiling, even though he's supposed to be angry. But I don't think it was very well put in because, number one, I was confused like you were at the end, where I was like,
okay,
when it's a big reveal, because he's giving evidence back. So presumably these are people that you've spoken to before, right?
Right.
And so when he realizes, I'm like, oh, I can tell by the way they shot this scene, I'm supposed to realize with
yeah. And you can clearly see because he's like, well, have some coffee. Tell me about the case.
Right,
but the whole time.
And he looks super creepy.
It
But
didn't land because I'm like, "Who?"
yeah, I'm like, totally, this guy's the killer, but who the hell is this guy? Right?
Exactly.
He looked super creepy, and I was like, if this guy had been this creepy before, I would have noticed him. But then in all the other scenes that I saw previously, he had like he was like growing in a beard, and then at the end, he's like super clean shaven, right? Which I
Did
think
he
adds to his
even have
creepiness.
speaking roles? Did he have
Yes, he
prominent
did.
speaking
And
roles?
he's just after two of the kills, and it is suspicious if you notice him, which obviously I didn't. It is suspicious that after multiple kills, he happens to be there, right? Like he is the owner of the bed and breakfast cabin in the woods place that the first couple gets killed at.
Uh-huh.
And Garfunkel Sheriff, she mentions like, oh, why did this guy take this route instead of that route? That you're probably supposed to question. Oh, it's probably somebody who was there, the guy. But I don't remember a scene where they're like getting their key to the cabin and the guy's like, well, have a nice night or something. I don't remember that at all.
It feels
Like they
like
just missed one scene. Yeah. And then so he's complaining after other kills, and he's like, hey, I need to work here, or hey, I need to call my wife. And that was the clincher. In the middle, after one of the kills, they were questioning him, and he's like, can I call my wife? And that's why at the end, when the guy's like, I don't have a wife,
I don't remember the scene where he's like, "Can I call my wife?"
Right. I didn't either.
For me, that was legitimately the first time he appeared.
Right. That's what I felt too. I had to go back over, and he had a different like haircut and facial hair, which is probably why he didn't look quite as creepy. And so I think that was a problem. They should have had him look the same in all the scenes he was in.
I will say I really was hell bent on the main character being the wolf. The daughter's acting was a bit shaky too. The scene where he snapped on her was hilarious. That was probably my favorite moment. She's like, "You're not even gonna effing ask if I'm okay." And he's like, "No."
Yeah, that was
Like,
powerful to me.
That was the best scene in the film. But her face when he's screaming at her, again, I stand by this. She had a sinister expression. So in my mind, because he was no longer the wolf, I was like, oh, it's her. That's why she's not on screen. That's why she's always like, yeah, I'll stay home. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at the end, it's just this random dude, coffee maker man, that's like, it's me. Like, even the details that you just told me you went back and you saw,
Mhm.
I'm wondering if they would still pack a punch, if I even saw it,
No, they needed one more.
When he lifts him up and then he flees because backup comes, and then he chases after him, first of all, after taking a really bad wound. He picks himself up, chases after him. He's like looking around, can't see him in this like not that densely populated wood area.
Yeah.
And then the guy run past the camera and then like he pushes him and then he shoots him. I'm like, what kind of fight was that? Like it was like I don't mind the ending when he's like with his daughter and the girl, woman Julia has become sheriff instead. I don't mind that at all. That was fine. But the climactic battle, it didn't hit for me at all.
Whenever I'm looking up horror movies and it says drama or thriller, I worry like, oh, this is going to be kind of boring because it's going to get into like emotional stuff that I don't necessarily, in my horror movies, and isn't going to have as good action is what I'm usually expecting. And I'm glad they didn't put drama on this, even though it's a bit of a drama, because I probably would have maybe passed it by.
That was Blood Vessel. Yeah, so this film has faults, but it's still enjoyable. We both can agree to that, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, that is The Wolf on Snow Hollow. We will see you next time for the next film. Adios.
Ciao.